dance for joy or lust.
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Reviews, or in this case, not very sensible secondhand reviews, the series where we look at practical, sensible cars which you could buy for a budget between £1,000 and £5,000 most of the time. But today we're looking at something which you can buy for a budget between £1,000 and £5,000, but not particularly sensible, but it's still a lot of fun. This is a 2010 Renault Twingo Renaultsport 133. But is it any good? Should you care? Let's find out, shall we? So this generation of Twingo was launched in 2007, and in fact on No Budget Reviews in 2021 I covered a 1.2 GT model that was from the very first month they sold them over here, September 2007. It continued in production until 2014, although the Renaultsport version only lasted from 2008 to 2013. Facelift occurred in 2012, but considering the car was only made for a short time after that, you don't find too many of those around. Based on the same platform as the Renault Wind, but I've also covered on the channel, which has a lot less space inside. One of these does, but much more of a fresh air experience. Basic engine in the Mark II Twingo is a 1.28 valve with 59 horsepower. A bit more interesting would be the famous D4F engine, which produced 74 horsepower, but it's a 60 valve version of that 8 valve engine. Then the D4FT, I think it's called, 99 horsepower, a turbocharged version of the D4F, which is a GT model. And then this, the Renaultsport version of 1.6 Renault K-type engine with 131 horsepower. Gearbox in this is a 5-speed manual, as in all the Mark II Twingos, I think. There was no automatic option. I think on the Mark 1s you might be able to get a automatic later on, but certainly when they launched them in like 92, 93 I think it was, you couldn't get one. Not maybe quite as characterful as the Mark 1, but certainly I quite like it anyway. The suspension's very firm in this car. You don't really want to go near too many potholes. You really don't want to do that at all, because it will just bump and crash at you, and I want my spine to be intact, so I'm avoiding potholes, which is probably a sensible idea. Steering on this car is actually really, really good. It's not quite as sharp, I don't think, as an Abarth 595, but I've just driven one of those actually just before this on the day of filming. It's not quite as sharp as that. There is a bit of a sort of dead bit in the steering around the straight ahead, but it's really quite good. It's not as fast as one of those either. 0 to 60 in this car, I think it's about 8.5 seconds. Because it's a normally aspirated engine, you do have to treat it a little bit differently. You've really got to rev it a little bit harder to make the most of it, but it does reward you for that. It's such a light car that it sort of dances around, you know, particularly good in an urban setting, or in the case of Jeremy Clarkson on Top Gear many years ago, if you're trying to get away from somebody and you've got Russ Kemp in the boot. This little thing does look really purposeful actually. It's very, very sporty. This is a pre-facelift one. The facelift came around at about 2012, so there's not many post-facelift Renaultsport Twingos actually out there. See, actually on the side of the car it does give the horsepower output of this car in PS. It's actually closer to 131 brake horsepower, but 133 PS. I'll have to check on round the back to see if Russ Kemp's in the boot in a second. Yeah, a little spoiler. Not so keen on black wheels on cars, but I suppose it sort of fits with the other bits of extra trim that are on here. Nice kind of fat little exhaust. So we'll open up the boot. See if my number plate falls off. Yes, it does. I'd better put that back. Otherwise I'll be pulled over by the police, which won't be fun. One thing about this car actually that I'm quite happy with is that this one doesn't have the 2 rear seats that have come loose. So often on these Mark II Twingos, those 2 rear seats have gone loose. I can't remember if the one that I filmed in 2021, which was a GT model, had the wobbly rear seats. This one doesn't seem to. But yeah, you can slide those forward if you want more boot space. I think it's about 285 litres if you do. It's under 200 if you just leave them in the rearmost position like this car has. You'd think actually that you need some kind of parcel shelf, and actually you do have one. It's just here, and you can take that out if you want, but it sort of cleverly sits there if you just want to leave it in place. Yeah, it's one of those cars, isn't it, but the spare's probably tucked away under the boot floor because there's nowhere else that I can see where you'd be able to access it. So we've actually got the kind of door handles that you used to get on sort of older French cars, things like the Peugeot 106 pre-facelift, these little tiny things here. But you know, serve a purpose. Renaultsport logos and things on the sills as you get in. Red seat belts, like on an LMG Metro, and the Renaultsport logos as well on the seats. Actually quite big door bins for a little car like this. Yes, it looks really good. It's a shame that Renault don't make little cars like this anymore. I mean, you can still buy a nice fast Clio, but this is a lot smaller than the Clio. Based on the same platform as the Renault Wind actually, and actually this particular car has the same engine as the Wind that I tested back in September. Right, we're going to try to get in the back, aren't we, viewers? Mr. Manning from the Matty's Cars channel, this is for you. This actually could be a lot easier than it looks. Let's see. Side airbags, might need those. If you're driving very hard, you end up in a spin. Actually, it's not too bad in here. I mean, we can slide the seat forward and back if we want extra boot space or more legroom. Actually, compared with that Abarth 595C that I've just driven, there's a lot more kind of open space, and it doesn't feel as cramped in here at all. It's actually remarkably spacious. I can feel bold enough to actually put this back. That's actually fine. You know, bear in mind I am at the rearmost extent of the rear seats. But of course, if you don't need the rear seats, you can slide them forward or fold them out of the way. Very clever. Headroom is actually fine. If you're, over 6 foot, it might struggle, but I'm about 5'11", so I'm fine. Yeah, it's fine. This feels a lot more airy in here. It's not quite as interesting dash as the one in the 595 in some respects, but in others it hits quite weird. I mean, a little pod in the middle is where the instruments are. Clearly, easier to switch that over from left to right-hand drive, and the wipers haven't been moved from left-hand drive to right-hand drive at all, because the French, for some reason, don't like us or something. Right, let's get in the front, shall we? So there we go, viewers. There's the speedo and the fuel gauge. Rev counter is here. I think on the most basic Mark II Twingo models, you didn't get a rev counter at all, but this one, there it is. And the warning lights are in that panel there. Radio is down here, although why you just can't put the display up there? It has to be like that, I don't know. Aux inputs, very simple heating and ventilation controls, sort of silver painted, but that's still plastic. Dash is hard plastic, but that's no surprise really. Feels very, very airy in here. It doesn't feel dark or anything, which I like. And we've even got the window controls actually on this side here, both of them, rather than on the dash as in an Abarth. Yeah, driving position feels quite good. Seats are very supportive. There's even like an oddment storage on top of there, which should obviously be on that side if this was a left-hand drive car. No point in trying to get my secret mission documents in there because they haven't moved the fuse box from left to right-hand drive, just like the wipers. So no point in trying that. 5-speed manual. I don't think you could get an automatic in any type of Mark II Twingo at all, actually. I have checked. Cup holders down there and a little place for putting pens and whatever else you need. But just really kind of not much to get in the way of the sheer thrill of driving a little car with a relatively large engine. In fact, let's have a look at said engine under the bonnet. So here is the 1.6 litre Renault K-type engine, in this case generating 131 horsepower, 133 PS. The engine dates back to the mid-1990s when it went into the first generation Renault Megane, but of course it was based on the even earlier Renault Energy engine, which came in, I think, in the sort of late 80s, early 90s. Quite a long-lived engine. Versions of this went into the Dacia Sandero and in some countries, actually the one we know more in this country would be the Duster, which was until quite recently you could get the 1.6 K-type engine in it. This one's a bit more powerful though than the one that was used in that Duster. We do have a cam belt, so just be aware of that when you're looking at the service history of one of these. But normally aspirated, no turbo, unlike the 1.2 GT that I drove in 2021. And a little joyous thing, really. Not pretty simple, not particularly complicated. 16 valve head as opposed to the earlier type that was in the first generation Megane that actually started off as an 8 valve engine. But there we go. It looks good, doesn't it? In fact, so good, I think I'm going to have to go out for another drive. Very pleasant actually to drive. Pretty easy if you can get your foot in the right place for the clutch. If you put your foot too high up, you sort of start fouling up part of the steering column, which is quite annoying. But if you put it a little bit further down, and also you wear quite slim shoes, it's not too much of a problem. I do feel sort of a bit kind of naughty driving this. It sort of eggs you on to want to rev it a bit more and drive it a bit harder, but this is sensible second-hand reviews, and so maybe we won't. I don't blame anyone for wanting to buy one of these, so I really don't. I think actually this engine's more reliable than the turbocharged 1.2, ironically enough. I've had sort of reported problems with those, whereas the standard D4F and this one, apart from the cam belt that needs doing, generally okay. Let's now look at some Mark II Renault Twingo trim levels. So the main ones when the car was launched in 2007 were Expression, Dynamique and GT. Later on there were others that came, such as the Extreme, the Bisou, the Freeway, the Gordini. There was actually another Gordini as well that was based on this model. The iMusic and the Pizzazz. Pizzazz spelled not in the way that we spell it in English. Not with 4 Z's, but with 2, which is confusing. As far as the Renaultsport Twingo goes, there was the standard Renaultsport Twingo like this one. You can also get one with the cup chassis, which I'm sure was even firmer than this. This is firm enough for me. The Gordini version of that, so confusingly there's a Gordini based on the GT and a Gordini based on the Renaultsport as well, and the Renaultsport Silverstone GP. So, should you consider a Mark II Twingo for your hard-earned budget of between £1,000 and £5,000, you can actually buy a standard Mark II Twingo for under £1,000. In fact, in 2021, the one that I filmed, the GT, was actually £1,000. That's how much that Alice paid for it. One of this car is actually for sale at $4,999 at Langley Prestige in Chelmsford. So this is what £5,000 buys you, a car like this at 50,000 miles or so, which I think is pretty good. These cars, I think, will continue to go up in value. They're all oxide emission zone compliant. We didn't get the engine we can't talk about in this country in the Twingo, so they're all petrol, and they're, you know, pretty robust things generally. There's obviously things to watch for like rust and cam belts and electrics and things like that, but they're not too bad overall, I don't think. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below, and we shall see you again soon for some more interesting but still reasonably priced motoring.